right. Because the super polished ones take a while to get going. Like I did one with way a long time ago with Avid, where we had a film crew and all this stuff, and it was me and Scoville, and it took like 20 minutes before we like ignored that there was 10 other people there. Yeah, because it's like I'm just distracted. Like it's kind of one of those weird things where you just like you just want to chat and then let them edit it later on. And I'm right. No, it just gets weird. It's like, well, once I was just text somebody and then I can shut this thing off. Just oh shit. So what's your go-to cheesesteak since you're from Philly? Oh, okay. Right, right. Well, depends. Once you start adding the Cooper cheese or whatever, it starts up in the game, changing the game a little bit. So now it's about now it's about the roll and the cheese as much as the steak. I love Jim's, like just because I went there a long time, like in the '90s. It was the first place I went to. It's been pretty much the same, even after the fire. But you have to eat it there. Like all those cheese, I'd say Jim's is probably the best. But we did a thing. Hold on, one second. It was. I was telling Adam Robinson I'll meet him for lunch after this because
Oh, I know Adam. He did
yeah, yeah,
Andy Grammer and stuff for a while. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. He actually
Yeah,
was
we
the
were gonna
first
meet for
guy to
lunch
use.
because I told him I had a thing at 2, so we were gonna meet at lunch at 12:30, and I'm like,
Oh, shoot. I'm sorry, because it's like 11:30 there right now, isn't it?
yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
so I told myself I'll meet him at 1 instead. So
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, we'll keep this short. Yeah,
but
Adam was
cheesesteak
actually.
wise, oh, it's good.
Oh,
Oh, go ahead.
Adam was like the first guy to use the V44S on tour. Actually, he dropped it 10 feet and then told me, "Hey, it's durable," because I accidentally dropped it.
You can drop it 10 feet, but you give it to a Clary too, and it breaks. So
I
like
actually have
two.
fixed a couple mics from Claire already, where the
Well,
where the
you sent me
assist.
a head for mine. I replaced the head once. Not
Yes,
not the mic itself, but like just the
the top
the
grill, right?
cage.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I had
That's
um I had to do two V4s for Xander Scott because one of the A2s dropped through it.
it's like, dude, I gave you the box. Like, how did this dent get here? It's above the guy's head. Except on Avril, it was funny because Chris is a little shorter than the drummer for Simple Plan, Chuck.
Hmm.
And Chuck would come and play, and because I had it right over the center,
Hmm.
and he'd come up and just bump his head into the thing every time. It's just like, but he's like a good, 4 or 5 inches taller. So it's like, so we've came up with a new way so he wouldn't bump his head. But
Yeah, that's fair. So there's not a big old thunkety thunk. Although
no,
I suppose you're all muted when in the changeover. So yeah,
yeah, yeah, it's not
yeah.
too bad.
Um,
But
cool. Well, I'll run just a quick, super boring intro real quick because I
okay,
I do that, and then we'll. I mean, it's already rolling tape, so I think we're set to go. So,
awesome.
um, all right, welcome back to episode question mark of Vanguard Conversations. It's been a while since I've done one of these because the schedule is whenever I feel like it. And I'm here today with Paul David Hager, um, Miley Cyrus, Olivia Rodrigo, I saw Dave Barnes, which I really liked. I don't know if a lot of people know necessarily who that is, but I really liked seeing that on your Discogs, because I'm a Dave Barnes fan. Um, Jonas Brothers, Goo Goo Dolls, like just a laundry list of both studio and live work. And this is the third time's the charm for me and Paul, because we were supposed to do this in like November, and then each of us had to bail one time. So this time we actually did it. And this is my first time doing this in a while, because NAMM takes up all the brain space for a good couple months for anybody in pro audio.
Well, there's the built up and then the come down from it.
Yeah, the getting your voice back, which takes about a week for me.
Yeah, I have to be like, if I don't have water with me the whole time, my throat dries up really fast. Just talking to stuff.
And it used to be worse, man. Like when pro audio was all in Hall A before they built the North Hall. Oh, yeah. That was like the first NAMMs I ever exhibited were over there, not with Vanguard, with another company I was working for. And it sucked, man. It was so
Well, you also had to start in the basement. So like if you were new to NAMM before COVID and all that stuff, it's like, or even before 2008, it's like if you were new, you had to be down in the basement. So then you had all these newer companies in the basement along with, the foreign companies. And then, the longtime people were up where they were. And then people started dropping out because they have that stupid rule that, like, if you can't make it, even if it's a disaster going on, you lose your spot, and then they move the people up from downstairs. So now it's kind of a mess upstairs, because you have like maybe Avid, and then you have like a Korean speaker company that's making knockoffs.
And so the Dora the Explorer guitars and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So when they moved everything to that North Hall, it seemed at first they didn't like that it was far away, like it was another building, but now it makes more sense. Now I feel like you can go over there and just stay there.
Yes. The first year that we did it, they had either you had to go across like the big old skyway on like the third floor or whatever, or you had to go through security again. And like all the reps for different, like sales reps or people that were meeting multiple companies were like, this is so dumb, because I'll schedule like meetings half an hour apart, but it takes me 25 minutes to go between halls if I have to go from like Hall B to the North Hall to Hall A or something like that. So it's, they fixed it.
That first time, or it took me an hour and a half to find the North Hall because they kept pointing over there, and I'm like, that's a parking lot. Because it's connected to what used to be the parking lot. And you're just like wandering around. And I had a friend, same thing. He's like, he's been walking around for like 3 hours. And he's like, where is all the audio companies? Yeah, because there's a few scattered, smaller ones scattered in the main hall still. So some people are walking around totally confused. Like, why is this here? Because I think Avid still had a thing in the main building, or a few other companies, and then you jump over to the hall there. But I don't know, I get more done now that it's all in one spot. I just I can loop around, see everybody, and not have to jump.
I get even more done now that I don't have to set up a booth and stuff like that, because then by the time NAMM starts, I'm already exhausted, and I'm like, I just want to go home, as opposed to now it's a couple hours into NAMM, I'm already exhausted and I want to go home. So
the booth thing, that's a whole other ripoff.
It's
a friend of mine had a booth, and his stuff showed up a day late, and he had to pay an extra like $2,000. So it showed up early. That's what it was. It showed up on Tuesday instead of Wednesday or something,
and he had to pay the storage fees.
Yeah, or it was like and then when he couldn't get his gear at the end until he paid, and he had to pay like in cash or something like that. It was bad.
Fortunately, the nice thing about the convention center is once you get to know some of the union guys, and you can bribe them with like beer or cash or whatever to get stuff done for you. And so I know a couple of the guys, and I'm like, hey, can you do this, that, and this? And I don't have to do that anymore, because I'm just hanging with the Audioscape guys every year, which is so much better. I got to tell you, and the people, like all three of the people who are going to watch this probably, that I have a foster dog here who's a German Shepherd. So one, she groans all the time when she's laying down, and two, she barks whenever anybody walks by. So just be prepared for a little bit of Foley, I guess would be the term for it. But yeah.
How old is she?
She's 3.
Oh, okay.
And she's awesome. She's a great dog.
I love German Shepherds. We've had 3, I think, German Shepherds.
So. Okay. And aren't they just like, they have so much energy, but they're so sweet.
Yep. And so protective.
Yeah, they got that loyalty thing going on. And she loves absolutely everybody, but still barks at the door like there's a murderer at the gates. And then as soon as you walk in, she's like, "Hi, I really like you. Pet me, throw my toy," all that stuff. But yeah, she's a great dog. She's going to get adopted real fast, I'm sure. So, we should probably talk about audio stuff. So I have a couple things that I've been thinking about. One is, and I asked this to a lot of the live guys, a joke, like, because you, did you start studio or did you start on the front of house into things?
Probably studio in a way. Mm-hmm. I mean, I started in a band.
Okay.
So I was in a band, and I was always the guy that like had, recorded my band or like dialed in the band, and even in high school it was like, and then I kind of jumped to studio a little bit first, like as doing that, and then I found live sound kind of by accident. Like when I was playing in a band, there was a band that rehearsed next to me, and every time I went to see them, they just sounded bad. And one day like, well, why don't you give it a shot then? Yeah, like I was like, okay, fine. And then I kind of went in, and they were opening up for another band, and their engineer was nice and kind of like just showed me a couple of tricks, and then I just kind of looked at what he was doing at his sound check, and this is back like when you kind of use the same board for everybody, so his settings were already there kind of. And when we put up our drums, I mean, drums sound like drums pretty much. So, and then I did the show, and I probably used way too many effects and shit like that, but their friends liked it. So I just kind of continued on, and then my band broke up, and then I hated being in bands because it's just too much politics. Your life on other people, Yeah. It's like I spent a lot of time trying to find shows to book, and we were underage, and like getting into some of these clubs, it's like, okay, I booked this thing on Friday, and then my singer would be like, oh, I have a date with my girlfriend, or it's like, dude, we're playing in Boston, we're opening up for something. So just that kind of stuff never changed. And my brother who plays in Devo now, he had bands and went through the same thing. Like they were signed, and then his singer quit on him just out of the blue. Like they were playing their way to LA. They were already signed. They got dropped after a couple of records. And then they were doing a tour, and then we were at South by Southwest, and they were making their way over to California to like do a big showcase. And then the singer just on stage is like, well, tonight's the last night we're playing because I'm quitting. And it was just like, what? Yeah. There's labels there. It's like we all spent a lot of time getting people.
Yikes.
So it's just like that kind of thing. And then he had another singer one time in another band earlier than that just, we set up this gigantic showcase, and then the guy went home. He was like, we did the showcase in Boston, and he lived in Rhode Island. It's like, well, where are you? It's like, oh, I went home. I don't want to do this. Like, like people just have this thing when you get to a crossroads where they go good or go bad. Their brain just makes them like, I don't want to do this, because life could change.
Change is scary.
Bad. Yeah. And our brains make us stop from doing that sometimes. So,
well, and then you made a big change in that case to kind of doing more of the live sound route. And I always joke with like front of house guys. So why do you hate yourself? But a lot of guys seem to be built for it. I personally, like I live sound is just not something I enjoy doing the way I enjoyed studio stuff. But you clearly have done okay, I guess, just mixing Olivia and Miley and all these incredible acts.
Olivia I only do TV stuff with.
Okay.
I do Chappell. which
Oh,
is
that's right.
maybe,
Chappell Roan. Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
Well, I love that situation's awesome. She's great. Band's great. It's so much fun to mix. The songs are good. But back to the other thing, it's like, so I did a little bit of live sound, and then I started getting into studio stuff. But this was like late 80s, and there was no, like, the way studios were then is like you either went into $1 million studio or you went into a cheap studio and they weren't equal. Like nowadays, you could make something at home that sounds as good as you did in a studio. And that gap is a lot shorter now. But back then, it was like I worked for a band in Boston that the guitar player's dad owned the biggest jingle studio in Boston. So we got to use the studio for free. But it was only an 8-track studio. So it was an 8-track, 1-inch place, but in the 80s, like they wanted to sound like Motley Crue or something like that. And those were made in $1 million studios, $1 million records. And I couldn't get the sounds I wanted at this place. I mean, now we could make cool sounds, but the 90s didn't happen yet. So in the 80s, the line that you had for records sounded one way, and then everything else sounded like a demo,
Yeah.
So I literally hated the studio because of that, because I couldn't get the sound I heard in my head. Whereas live, it was like there was the excitement live that I liked about it. Like you could see the reaction from people, like as you turn things up and down and kind of just made things happen. The audience let you know right away whether it was good or bad. And it kind of took the band a little bit out of the picture, because back then, a lot of bands in the studio sometimes they don't know what they want to do, and especially back then, because it's going in the studio was just a weird thing for a band. Nowadays, I think it's much easier because everybody has a Pro Tools or Logic or something like that, and they have better grasp on recording and being prepared for it. But back then, it was just like you started off, you didn't know what you were going to end up with.
Yeah. What do you mean your drummers never played to a click before?
Right. Exactly. It's like now it's like normal. Now it's like, what? You don't want me to play real quick?
Yeah.
So it was just like I like the live thing better because it was just more immediate, and you heard music right away. But that's the thing for me. It's like I kind of hate recording part of it, because you're starting with nothing, and then you might not hear music for a day. Until it's like where it's just that immediate hit. So I did that for a while, and then probably like 91, one of the studios that a lot of bands that I worked with live recorded at, their head engineer moved to Florida, and then they were like, hey, you should come record here. And I was kind of like, oh, I don't want to do that. But it was the beginning of the 90s where you could kind of do whatever you want. Like bands wanted to sound like themselves versus the 80s where everyone was chasing whatever the hit sound was. It's like you're hearing this thing on the radio and you're like, I want to sound like that. And it's like, well, we have to go to LA and go to that studio and,
hire that engineer or what have you.
Right. It's going to cost you that much money. And in Boston, where I grew up musically, it was, you had Synchro Sound and a couple other places that were big studios, but there wasn't like a Capitol or a, Sunset Sound or stuff like that. And so you didn't really get the results you wanted right away but then in the 90s, it was more fun because people wanted to sound unique, and, there was no bad sound really. Like if something sounded, it was either, it sounded right or it sounded cool or something. You could make cool sounding records. And if it sounded unique, that was great.
Yeah.
And I liked that better, so I started doing that, and then kept doing a little bit of live sound, and then bounced back and forth. And then in 97, I actually gave up doing live sound, moved to Nashville to work for Peter Collins, and then did a bunch of records with him. And I just loved that. It was fun and great to do. And then 9/11 happened, and studio stuff kind of slowed down. So I just started touring again with a bunch of bands. And at that time, it was like, okay, now I can do live what I do in the studio, because the two mediums were kind of coming closer to each other. You know,
Mhm.
I mean, look at now. It's like we're putting up these really expensive microphones on stuff, whereas back in the day, it was like you would never have done that.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, and
and now,
so many guys I see using like racks of studio gear in live
oh yeah,
situations. You're seeing like manly compressors and stuff on
yep.
in live rigs. I'm like, that's crazy.
I mean, I remember the first time I brought a Summit EQ. I had one of those stereo Pultec type EQs that Summit
Mhm.
had, and I brought that to a live show and put it across the PA system, and it was like, oh, I can do this. You know,
Yeah.
yeah, because it used to be. I don't know if you remember Fletcher from Mercenary Audio. He used to
Yeah, yeah.
he used to go out and do shows, live shows, and because he had all this gear at his company, he'd like bring an AMS. You know, so there'd
Mhm.
be this AMS reverb at a 300-seat bar. You know, well, did he know he was starting a whole thing? Now that's like a normal thing. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
and all the power that we have in the digital world is like
Mhm.
incredible. You know, it's like back then, it's like you know, to have like the Yamaha console I have now has Rakastis and an H3000s in it and 1176s, and it's like, you know, if we had that then, and you had a console and you had a couple of compressors and away you went.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Was there something freeing about that though? Like the limit on the tool set you had?
yeah,
Yeah. It's like
definitely.
form and poetry, right? Like where you confine yourself to a form. And that makes you work within that structure, right? As opposed to like, I know a lot of people like me when I first got into like, the Pro Tools thing, and I definitely didn't go and like download every cracked plugin library that there was. And then you have, you go to open up, which compressor you want, and you've got like 40 choices, and it's just paralysis via analysis, right? And
Right. I
so
mean, look at behind me. I have a problem. It's like,
yeah, except the difference is I'm sure you know all those fairly intimately because, you work with them every day. When I was first starting, I was like many people, the gear captured me in a way that I was putting the cart before the horse and thinking about gear before I was thinking about technique. Um
right.
but you grew into it in a time where the technique was paramount because the gear was so limited.
Well, the microphone was the most important thing. You know,
Mhm.
well, here. I mean, like
I
the
also
gear before
agree,
the mic.
but
Yeah. Well, I mean, you learned that you had to get the sound from the gear first. You
Mhm.
know, like what R amp or the drums or whatever, and then just had to have the right mic. And by changing the mic to be the correct mic you needed, and not. And the thing I learned quickly was that every mic doesn't work for every situation. You know, you
Mhm.
can't be like I learned that you could have a great sounding vocal mic, but some singers maybe they need the SM7 or something more dynamic.
Mhm.
You know, you're trying to get all the good and not the bad.
Mhm.
You know, I did one record where I was at Conway and had this beautiful 251, and the singer didn't sound right on it. She sounded not. It was a rock band,
Mhm.
and so I had that, and I had an SM7 for the backgrounds, and so I flip flopped it and used the 251 for the backgrounds, and then put her on the SM7, and all of a sudden she sounded like her. You know,
Mhm.
but then some other people, the 251 sounded great. You know,
Yeah.
so you have to like listen to what it's doing and making sure you're getting what you need out of the right mic in the right spot for the right thing.
Yeah. And not listening to the price tag, because I think that's a really common trap that people fall into, which is why blind tests are so useful, right?
Well, I mean, a good example is Miley's vocal mic. We were using $80,000 Sennheiser wireless for like 10 years. And then one day she's like, I want to use a cabled mic, something cool. And I just got this, I did a thing with Shure where I got this talkback mic with a switch on it, you know, like the Freddie Mercury mic,
Mhm.
handed it to her as a kind of a joke. And she sang through it and it sounded amazing. And me and the monitor guy were both like, all right, let's go with this. And then that's like using ever since, you know, $75 Shure mic that's about to be discontinued.
Uh-oh. Go buy up all the stock that GC
Uh,
has left?
yeah, I mean, they just they made me a special one where they took the switch out of the circuit,
Okay.
you know, so it wasn't it, so it went right from microphone to the plug. But
Mhm.
but still the mic sounded amazing, and it was $75, and she
Yep.
was using like this really expensive system before that, and this sounded kind of better. And
If
people are always amazed. They always look at it like, well, you must have changed the head inside. I'm like, no, it's $75 microphone. It's like it's amazing. And even the people at Shure are just like, I can't believe she's using that microphone. It's like, and it works.
Yeah, if it sounds good, it is good. Is kind of the rule, right?
Yeah.
At least it's studio wise. I assume same applies to live. What are some other what are some things that you've taken from your live work and knowledge and wisdom into the studio, or vice versa? I'm curious because so few people I think straddle it professionally in the way that you do, where you're working with top acts on both sides of it. And so it's really unique to have somebody like you that is doing that kind of work on both sides of it with really high end talent. And I don't want to say name brand, but like name brand, we're not working
Right.
with Kirkland peanut butter here. We're working with Nip and Skippy, as it were. So I'm really curious what how one informs the other, if there's any particular things you can think of off the top of your head, now that
Well,
I'm putting you on the spot.
I would say the one common denominator would be in both sides of it, you have to make it exciting. Like, it has to feel right. Like, whether you're mixing a record, or I'm mixing a broadcast, or I'm mixing live sound, it just has to excite you and make you feel something. So it's like those three things are that's a common thing. And I would say things like the way the use of compression has kind of blended in both. Like before, it's like you wouldn't use a distressor live the way you would in the studio, and now because you could hear what that's doing more through the PA system's got much better. It is kind of funny. One thing is that studio stuff, our final delivery thing is like earbuds.
Yeah.
So it says we've gone down way downhill in the studio side, and then on the live side, the speaker systems have gotten much better and much clearer, and the deployment, and like you can achieve the mix you want. Like the mix I have when I listen to a board tape, is closer to what's coming out of the PA than it's ever did before. Whereas 30 years ago, that wasn't. You'd hear a board tape and it sounded pretty good, but the PA and the speaker was kind of making the excitement.
Yeah.
Whereas now you can do it at the console, and you can have a more studio type mix. And then the flip flop of that, I think I've brought in like the excitement of live more into my studio side, trying to like think of it as like, I'd say like in the 90s and stuff, I thought more from I kept them separate, whereas live was live and studio, you had to get the sound to be the best and tight and clean and clear and all this stuff. And then there was just a point where they kind of crossed over almost, where the excitement of live, I really try to make sure like my studio mix has that, so it feels like I could picture the band on stage,
Yeah. Yeah. So do you let more bleed and stuff happen in studio as a result of that? Like tracking in a live setting in that sense? Or is there something else specific that you do?
I mean, not really bleed, I'd say it, but more of like how people interact with each other. I mean, I get a lot of stuff to mix because I don't do much recording side of it. I just do more mixing, but I try to like make it feel live. Like I did a record with a band where they all recorded across the country. They all, the drummer did stuff in New York.
Hard to get bleed in that situation, I think.
Right. But when I got it, I kind of went for making it feel like they were all in the room together. And I kind of achieved that, whereas maybe 20 years ago, I would have liked I would have played with the isolation more. And now I'm kind of trying to smear it and make it feel like everybody's interacting with each other.
So you're bussing into common channels and stuff like that to kind of get that cohesive sound more.
Kind of just using the way I use reverbs and stuff like that, and just compression, just make it so that things kind of just jump out of the speaker, more so,
Okay.
and how I use depth for stuff, because that people forget about, like live, you're really trying to just, the main thing is clarity, whereas in the studio mix, it's like more about depth. So it's more like what's going on behind the speaker, like when you listen to stuff, you want to be taken into a world, whereas live, you already have that. You're already in an arena. You're already in a venue. So it's like that part's kind of done, whereas studio wise, you kind of have to build that and be like, well, where do I want this? Like, I just remember listening to 80s records and being like, I can picture the venue on some of them, I can picture, and sounds like they're playing in an arena,
Yeah.
But you had to build that from scratch because there's not there.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of arenas, I've talked to a couple live guys about this, and just real quick, what's your favorite one to mix in? It just makes it easier because of the acoustics or whatever. And what's your least favorite one to mix in?
Least favorite, SoFi.
SoFi, really?
The worst. It's like, because in LA, it's just like, it's an outdoor stadium it's indoors. It has a roof, but the roof is glass.
Oh no.
It's so hard to it just sounds awful. It's just, no matter what you do, everybody kind of has a bad time there. Okay. And because you're trying to cover, thing with speakers is like, if you only have to shoot down this way, it's okay. But then when you have seats up here and you have to get stuff up there, things are going to bounce around, and you can deploy a lot of delays, but nobody wants to pay for all that stuff.
Yeah.
And they like rooms that are good are like the Forum, Madison Square Garden, where it's just duller, tends to be like, it's kind of funny. A lot of the arenas that I like have teams that won lots of championships. So there's lots of flags in the roof.
And that's like your acoustic.
Yeah, I'm like, wow, this year sounds better because the Bruins won.
Yeah,
2 more flags.
Yeah, retire more jerseys. We need Chara up there. Stat.
I mean, 90% of the time, it depends on the roof, like how they treated the roof. If the roof has like deadening in it and soundproofing and stuff like that, then the room usually sounds pretty tight. But the problem is like there was a place in Montreal, the Bell Center, that sounded amazing. And then like one time I was there and I'm like, why does it sound awful now? And they're like, oh, they took all the soundproofing off because for hockey, it didn't sound good.
Yeah, because it dulls that Montreal Canadiens fervor,
Right.
Also, that is Centre Bell to you, sir. This is Montreal we're talking about.
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah. I don't remember if it was Chris Diener or Brian was talking about, there was like a rodeo. It was like, sometimes it was like a cattle auction and sometimes it was a rodeo. It was somewhere in one of the more like ranchy type states. And he said it was like the worst venue he's ever had to mix in. Just vibrating sheet metal everywhere.
It's like so reverberant sometimes. And so like, because they want one person to sound like 10 for the hockey teams and stuff. And they really base stuff on that,
Yeah, I'm sure it depends on what the primary use for the venue is, but yeah, I mean, I don't envy you guys going from place to place and you're like, oh man, this room sounds great, and then in this room, like the amount of like corrective EQ I have to do, or like there's this obnoxious reverberant like 400 hertz or whatever that I'm never going to get rid of because it's in the room, stuff like that. So,
but nowadays you have all this predictive software that you didn't have, where you could build, like in one of them, you can actually drop microphones in like the mock-up. So in like Sound Vision or Array Calc, you could actually almost tune the PA within the room, and then you go and, as long as you deploy the whole thing the right way, exactly. Like people forget in all the predictive stuff, it does exactly what you tell it to do. So if you build the arena correctly in it, or whatever the venue is, and put as much detail, like my friend Sean Sullivan puts so much detail into his things where it looks like a picture of this real place.
Oh wow.
Like that seats and stuff like that. and then deploys the PA, and then you can move the PA around virtually until you get what you want. And then as long as you deploy it exactly how you did it, usually you can get 80-90% there before even starting. That stuff, that technology just getting better and better. And it's just, I wish I had that back in the day.
Yeah. Well, my doorbell back here is telling me that the delivery guy's coming to pick up. I sublet, so it's not a big deal. But yeah, if you hear any barking, that's Luna, guys. Okay. She is available for adoption. Home@lastdogrescue.com. But
you should have a picture of her,
just throw a picture up. That sounds like editing work that I don't have the time nor expertise to do. I build microphones. There's a reason I'm not a bassist anymore. Spoiler alert, I was not good at it. That's why. And I didn't want to put the time.
You're good at building microphones.
I do okay with microphones. Let's talk about microphones, because you talked a lot about, in the beginning here, you talked about how different microphones sound good on different things. And, this is the part where I awkwardly and self-consciously, shamelessly plug the Vanguard V44S, which you started using on drum overheads in particular, as well as piano for some of Olivia's TV stuff, if I remember right. And
Brian turned me on to it because he was like, you got to hear this microphone. And when I heard it doing the broadcast side of her stuff, I was like, this mic's amazing, especially over on drums for the piano. It just sounds like it's kind of like point and click. Yeah, point and go. It's like it's all in phase.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a nice picture, and if you have a good drummer and a good sounding drum kit, it makes life so much easier, because it's just put it over their head and it's perfect. I don't know, one day I just, for a joke during sound check, I just put up that mic and the kick mic, and everybody's like, wow, the drums sound amazing. And I'm like, it's just an overhead and one of the inside kick mics. It's like, just sounded good.
So I always think about microphones. I like tools, right? Like they solve certain problems. So
yeah.
You're talking about the problems it's solving. What were some of the problems you feel like you were maybe running into with other space pairs and stuff like that it solves for you?
Well, a lot of time live, it's especially in bigger venues, I have A2s that are putting mics up, and sometimes they're not exactly. They're in the close place, but the distances aren't right,
mm-hmm.
and then you're getting little smear of the center. If the snare isn't arriving at both of them at the same time, and that doesn't mean that, sometimes means one has to be higher than the other to get it so that the distances are exactly the same. The snare gets a little phasey in the middle. Once they're together, it's locked.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas that mic, wherever you put it, everything's arriving to it at the same time. So that takes that out of the picture.
Gotcha.
So it's just, you put it over, and it's like, if I'm getting too much hi-hat, I just move it over a little bit, and I can pick up the whole kit as a whole, but everything's getting to it, at the arrival times are correct. There's
mm-hmm.
no messing. Can't really mess that up, unless you put the mic up.
So the problem you're solving is human error, in a sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
But when you're trying to put stuff up, and you have, on Beck, there's 45 to 50 microphones on stage.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of, this is one thing, and I rely on I don't use overheads as cymbal mics. I use as the drum kit, and I build up around it. Even the studio, everything, I've always done that. So it's like the overheads have to be right. Some people think oh, they're just cymbal mics. It's like, no, this is 90% of my sound is the overhead mic,
mm-hmm.
And then everything else is just making it punchier. Yeah.
Gotcha. So that taking the overall snapshot that glues everything together, and then the other stuff is attack, almost like attack mics in a way.
Right. And when it's all in phase, it just gives you you have a natural sound. And if you need to pull back the overhead a little bit, if the cymbals are too bash, it depends on the drummer too. But
mm-hmm.
I like having one mic that has a picture of the drum kit, and then building around that. Then you have a good foundation for it all.
The foundation on the top, just like they build houses, I believe.
Exactly.
Yeah. So where do you
But
typically
I've
put
also
it?
used it behind, like on I did a Christmas at the Opry, and that I had to do slightly. Couldn't do it overhead because of the visuals.
Mhm.
So what I
I've
did
heard
is
that
I did,
before.
yeah, it is a big microphone.
Yeah.
So I did a thing where I put up a couple Earthworks mics, like, in a split pair, but then I put that mic behind the drummer, like in a spot that picked up the whole kit from behind. And then on some of the stuff that was like very like brushes and stuff like that, I would just use that mic and just
Oh,
bring it
really?
up and press it, and it just kind of glued the whole thing together. And then on even when they were rocking, it just kind of added this drummer's perspective almost. But it would be sitting behind him, like kind of like either here or here, just picking up the backside of the kick and kind of the snare and stuff like that. And it added this really cool depth to stuff,
And
Maybe like a place to go.
hopefully the drummer didn't have chili for breakfast, or you'd be picking up some
Right.
other stuff.
Be funny though. If someone said bad word or something.
um, yeah, what moving away from just the Vanguard V44S, what other mics do you find like solve problems for you, either live or in the studio? Because my philosophy around mics kind of is they're just tools ultimately, right? So I'm curious what
Yeah.
tools you use that you find to be hyper useful for certain situations.
Well, I'd say, I mean, I always use the standard mics as my litmus test. So, like, I always go back to a 57 on a snare and then AB mics to that. Same
Mhm.
with like kick. Always stick a 421 in a kick drum just to hear it, and then switch mics out and make sure I'm moving forward in
Mhm.
it, not going. Like I did a thing with a guy where I came in. They wanted to hire me for a whole tour, but it was country and they only do a 4-day week, so it wasn't going to work out for me because I live in LA and it's expensive. We had I mean, it's true. But so I got them to hire me for a couple of days and come in with their guy and sit there and just kind of, listen to his mix and give him some, like, hey, why don't you try this? He could take it, leave it, whatever. But when it got to like the snare drum, it just sounded weird. And I'm like, I was like, what are you using? And he's like using a clip-on condenser mic that's kind of made for toms. And I could see why he was using it because it rejected the hi-hat really well.
Mhm.
And then I was like, well, let's just put a 57 just to kind of go back to as a standard thing and
Mhm.
here fits with that. And we put the 57 on there, and then the drummer hit the snare and through the PA, the artist was like, just automatically jumped up and was like, that's the snare sound. Yeah, like he just was happy because it just was the normal go back. It's sometimes just going back to the standard mic, as you don't have to use it, but at least use it to hear where your bass line is.
It's the
'Cause
cardinal
some people just
measurement. It's Greenwich Mean Time. Yeah.
yeah. Because some people just start throwing mics up and it's like, oh, well, this is the new so and so microphone. And I've been guilty of this too, but it's always like, does it sound right? Or am I just EQing it to make it sound right?
Mhm.
I always listen to stuff flat too, just to hear what the mic's doing, before, even if it's like on a live mix, I'll pop stuff out just to hear what the bass line, am I getting closer with just the microphone? So
Yeah.
try to keep that in mind always.
Yeah, that's a really good point because yeah, I end up comparing everything to something I know, which is microphone design. It's so, like when we first started working on the V13, we'd do like little changes at a time, whether it be a capsule voicing change or just like one capacitor. And we'd do like 4 different versions of that and listen to that. But we'd go into studios and go onto real sessions and then put it up against like whatever they had that was like their best mic. So it was a vintage 47 or 87 or 251 or something,
Right.
more modern, whatever. But then you have bass lines to listen against. And then you also go, okay, what did we like about this change? What did we not like about it? Which one sounded the best? And also that mic that was already up, what did we like about that? And how can we integrate some of that sound into what we're doing with this mic? So it's like, if you make too many changes at once and you don't have some cardinal point to refer back to, then you're just kind of flailing and hoping that you end up in the right spot.
Right. You're just kind of shooting in the dark.
Yeah. Yeah.
And vintage mics, people forget that, you know, how a vintage mic sounds now may not be how it sounded when it came out. You know,
absolutely not.
Like when Telefunken reissue, you know, when they came out with the whole reissue thing, people were like, oh, these mics sound stiff or they sound too bright. And it's like, that's probably what they sounded like when they first, you know, in the 50s. You know, you needed a brighter mic because everything was dulling it. You know, tape was dulling it, you know, cabling, like everything down the line was cutting the top end off.
Yeah.
So you needed mics that sounded bright, you know, but now we don't have that. Sometimes that's not the thing. Like I used to talk about preamps like that, like, because older Neves to me sometimes sound too bright because you're missing the tape element. You know, they were made to hit tape and sound like a Neve, whereas like there's something, you know, Wade from Chandler did where we got his pre's and I just going into Pro Tools straight with them just sounded vintage. Like he got the sound in the pre right where he didn't copy their pre's perfectly, but he made them sound the way that they're supposed to sound. Like, I don't know if that makes sense.
What the end result was after all that other stuff was involved, and what gives us that feeling of a vintage record.
Right, because you listen to like a 1073, like one that's in mint condition, and it actually sounds kind of bright, you know, but you hit tape with it, that's the 70s sound, you know, almost.
Yeah.
Whereas if you take that element out of it, I remember when they're reissuing Helios modules.
Okay.
And they sounded awful. And what happened was they copied the EQ module, but there was another like preamp or an op amp somewhere down the line outside of the module in the console that kind of gave it its sound. And at first they just didn't have enough output. And it's like they weren't looking at the full picture. They were just trying to copy this EQ module. And it had something else in the console, but it was after the fact between the fader and the module.
Yeah.
So then they finally figured that out and built that into the unit. So it's not an exact.
It's like running a compressor completely flat just because of what it adds to the circuit. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was missing that thing, you know, that last op amp.
Yeah. That's the other part I think that people don't take into account with vintage mics is the 60 years of cigarette smoke film that is built up on the capital to dull it out, you know, and the component drift, like a lot of the capacitors that they, you know, I do vintage repairs as well. And a lot of the stuff I measure is way out of spec, even for like the 25% tolerance or whatever it had, because the capacitors have just drifted so much with age. Like metallized paper, if it doesn't catch fire, can drift, you know, and electrolytics and tantalums can fail and start shorting and all sorts of stuff. It's when we developed the V24, I think at this point I've heard it against 6 C24s, and every single one sounded different. Yeah, I was like, oh, this one, you know, and some of them, like one of them was like a Klaus Hein modified one at what is it, 25th Street in Oakland, and then like another one was a Stephen Paul modified one and stuff like that. So like all these mics have had work done on them and they've had stuff replaced, or like maybe they haven't and that's why they sound that way. So whenever there are people like, oh, it's a U47 clone, I'm like, great, which U47 are you modeling it after?
Who's they listening to? Well, I remember when I lived in Nashville, it's like I had to write down serial numbers of microphones to make sure when I recreated something I had the exact mic, because you could sit there and just they can all sound good, but they all sound different, you know.
Yeah, Steve Jennewick was saying that about Capitol. Like, I think they had 5 U47s, and he said like all the engineers had like their various favorites, and he had his favorite. But like, you know,
I just used Frank Sinatra one every time.
that he said people always liked the Sinatra one, but that wasn't his favorite, is what he told me.
Right.
So
it was funny. My mom loves Frank Sinatra. They came to visit me one time at the Capitol, and Steve he's like, I gave my mom the Sinatra one in her hand. Yeah, it's like, but that's not even the Sinatra one. That was the Sinatra one at that Capitol, but not at the original one, which was over on Melrose,
Okay.
by Paramount. Outside of Paramount's gate, there's a building, and that was the original Capitol Studios.
Oh, I
where
did
Frank
not know
Stone-
that.
Yeah, it's like across from where Lucy's Adobe, I think, is. But across from that's this Art Deco building that's just before, if you're going east, it's just before the main entrance, but it's just this cool building. And that used to be Capitol Records with the studio. And that's the one that he loved.
Mm-hmm.
And then when Sinatra came to the one here, he didn't mind it, but that's why Bill Putman built Ocean Way, and he went over there a lot more,
Gotcha.
He flew Bill in from Chicago to build that, to be like, oh, I need a real good studio.
Well, I need to ask Steve, is Capitol, I heard a while ago that they were planning on opening it back up, is what Steve had said. Is that still in the works?
That's what I've heard. I heard it's all ready to go. I mean, I saw Paula a while ago, and it sounds like it's, at least that's what they're saying, is supposed to open up.
Oh, well, cool.
I don't know if Steve's part of our Atmos group, but I've been so busy lately, I haven't been going to it. So we have a thing called NAMM. It's Digital Atmos, Dolby Atmos Mixers Network.
As in, damn, how much money do I have to spend on speakers for my studio now?
Well, that's kind of, well, the thing was to get a bunch of people to get, the whole idea of it was pretty much so that there was one singular place that information can kind of be collected, and we can all kind of go through it and and make heads or tails of Atmos, because it was like, there's 10 million different ideas going on about it. And this way, everybody bounces off things they've tried, because we have people, like, everybody's a mixer, but some guys are more into like testing things. Some guys are more into just doing the music side. So it's like you have all these different opinions, and everybody just kind of knocks it out. We have like a signal chat thing that, the minute something new comes out for Atmos, there's a couple of guys that the first thing they do is try to test it and break it and make sure it's, it's great, because it saves a lot of us time we'd all be wasting at the same time. Yeah. So.
Well, I'll close with this, because I know you've got to run to a meeting here as well. Say hi to Adam for me, by the way. But, 2 questions for you. So, and you can answer them as short or long as you want. Do you think Atmos is here to stay? And do you think it's ever going to come to live music?
Well, it's already in live music for some tours.
I didn't know that, because I don't pay enough attention.
Oh, I think the Lumineers, like Bon Iver, like some of those bands, they've been touring with it. Lord's in Atmos right now, or at least Elisa, which is, some of it's not actually Atmos, but it's based upon the idea of object mixing.
Okay.
And live, it does some cool shit. I mean, it depends on the music, I think. And but a big part of it is also what an artist wants to spend on it. So like the where is it? The Hilton Resorts World, their theater is in Atmos, or it's in Elisa, which is L Acoustic's version of their object-based mixing. The Dolby Theater at the park, that's obviously Atmos, because Atmos has a live sound part of it.
It shows you how much I know about Atmos, because I haven't mixed a record in longer than I'd care to admit. Well before Atmos was a thing. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, Atmos is, I love mixing in it because it's kind of fun. It just has to be on the delivery, like, it's the delivery side of it that's going to make or break it. And it's like there's a lot of Atmos stuff out there, but the problem is a lot of it's just being done to, like, well, let's put the catalog in Atmos, and there's a lot of companies that just have someone that just does like 10 or 12 of them a day. They're not as creative as when people, like, that's a big thing of our little group, was we listen to stuff and check out things. Like, there's one cool thing someone brought in. It was Kanye West's what's it called, Black Skinhead, I think that's the name of the song. But it's just whoever mixed it in Atmos did all this cool movement of stuff, and you're just like, you're in a different world. It reminded me of like when I was a kid in the 70s and I put my headphones on and listened to like Boston or something like that.
Yeah.
It just took, it's like especially like the intro of like the Boston record. It's like you went to a different world, you know. Again, that use of reverbs and creating a venue,
Yeah.
you know, it took you somewhere. And Atmos kind of, when it's done right, it does that where you're like brought somewhere new, you know. But it's the delivery of it and things like, I wish the Grammys would, even though my friend Justin Gray just won a Grammy, which is awesome, but there should be like two Atmos Grammys, like one that's more commercial music and one that's more like, because there's a lot of stuff that these guys do where they record it specifically for Atmos. So they do like, you know, a 5 mic or a 7 mic setup. So the recording of it is like already thinking about putting mics in different speakers. So when you bring it up, it's already naturally format, you know, and that's a very cool thing too. But I feel like for the format to really push, you need to hear like Beyonce in it, or so, like people need to know more that they're listening to Atmos. Like a lot of people don't know sometimes on their iPhone that they're listening to the Atmos version, not the regular version.
Yeah.
Like I did my live record in stereo and Atmos, and you know the only thing is Atmos has a different level thing. It's negative 18 versus 0. Like a stereo record could be just as loud as fuck, but it's like this is like, you know, it has to be lower. But if you put on the thing that makes it equal level wise, sometimes like I played someone the stereo version of Miley live record and I played the Atmos version, and their exact words were like, "Wow, I feel like I'm at the show," you know, and I'm like, that's exactly what I want to pull off. You know, it's like that's the answer I wanted. So Atmos is good at doing that, like creating space for stuff like EDM. Like an EDM live thing in Atmos or on record, Atmos is like made for that, for electronic, because you can just move stuff around and it's, you know, kind of get excited, you know, kind of thing. But I think it could be here to stay. It's just people they just have to think better about it instead of it just being a money maker, you know. So it's like, oh, we could redo the catalog in Atmos and get more money from the old catalog, you know.
Yeah.
And some that's not supposed to be in Atmos because it's 4 tracks, you know. It is. It's like, you know, but there's some amazing stuff out there in Atmos too, where you just
definitely
close your eyes and you're just taken away. I mean, even with surround, I remember I was mixing a record in at Blackbird, and this is when George Massenberg had his room right next door in Studio C, and I was in Studio D. And he's like, "Hey, you want to listen to something?" And we listened to. He shut off the lights because his room at the time, it's that one that has all the diffusion. So if you don't look at the walls, you don't really hear the walls because it's the diffusion kind of kills any reflections. So it's the way it breaks it up. So if you shut the lights off and put on like a 5.1 record or Atmos record, you forget that you're in a studio. We listened to Dark Side of the Moon in 5.1, and it was amazing.
Speaking of things that might be made for surround,
exactly,
Pink Floyd with a bullet. Thank you very much. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. It's like, and it was done creatively. You know, it's like that's the thing. It's done creatively. Anything, if it's done creatively, people will like it in the end.
The first song I heard in Atmos was actually in the Capitol room. When they had first done the Atmos install with what is it, ATC or PMC? I don't remember. I think and Steve sat me down and put me in the big chair.
Yeah.
And he said, here's Rocket Man in Atmos.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
And that turned my brain inside out. I was like, oh my gosh, the possibilities here. And you know, for every great move in Atmos, there's going to be, it's like when the pan switch came out on the on consoles, and engineers were like, yeah, but what if the drums were all on the left? And you know, now we get to hear that today. So I'm sure there's going to be some boo-boos along the way.
Beck did an Atmos mix where he's like, I want the vocal to come from above me the whole time. So he had the vocal was here, not here.
That sounds
cool.
It sounds like a bit frightening, like somebody's singing into the top of your head. I don't know how I'd feel about that.
But if you look at the music as like a whole thing, but then if you sit like this, it actually is amazing. It's
Mhm.
like it's weird. It's like the perspective. He's like, why does the center have to be the center?
Yeah.
Like,
Put a water
you know,
bed in the middle of the studio, lay on that, take a couple edibles, and enjoy the record.
well, it's funny you say that. Just look up online when you get off this L Acoustics bed. Because L Acoustics, the speaker company that makes
Uh-huh.
speakers live sound, they made an actual bed that has an Eliza system built into it, and
Okay.
it's kind of futuristic. It freaked me out at first, but and then they have like these kind of these glass balls that have all the music in it, and you basically like put the ball on a thing, and then it plays back.
That is
Yeah,
futuristic. That's very
it's really
Minority
futuristic,
Report.
but it's like yeah, it's exactly like that. Like, but when you lay in it, it's like has speakers everywhere in it and a sub, and it's just like you're in the like basically if you have like you're watching it on. They had it set up with a visual thing too, so like you're watching a concert, but you're laying in bed, and it's like you have surround all around you, and it's pretty amazing.
That takes
Yeah,
immersive audio to a different
right.
like a different plane of existence, certainly. But
Well,
well,
they're just trying different ideas for it. It's like
yeah.
where it can go.
I mean, that's the nice thing about new formats is there's not rules around them yet, so you can be more creative with them and
No,
not be breaking any rules,
right.
as it were. So, and I put those in air
There's
quotes because,
no rules in music anyway. I
yeah,
think
well, there's not supposed to be, and yet somehow,
but
you still,
people think there are, but
yeah,
it's like you could think that there's a rule, but then by the time you thought of that rule, there's a new rule, or it's changed, or it's
yeah,
broken, or I mean, think about like if if it wasn't for like the COVID thing, how many people would have made like Billie Eilish and stuff made this her record in the bedroom
hmm
mainly because of COVID. They might have made those records in a proper studio, you know, not under those circumstances,
hmm
and it might not have been good. It's like things happen, like you were saying, like when you have less, sometimes people make more out of less.
yeah, yeah. Unless it's a stereo microphone, then it's twice as much, right?
Exactly. Twice as good.
Twice as good. Perfect. I think we'll cap it there. I think that's perfect. That's a great way to wrap it up. Thank you so much. I'm really glad we got to hang
I
here
know.
as
I,
well as NAMM. It's a little quieter here than NAMM, which I'm
oh
appreciating.
yeah, it got loud there.
But
Well, the audioscape guys, just them alone can get pretty loud.
oh my gosh, and they don't even, do drinking in the booth anymore, which is how it used to be. Then it could get really
I know.
loud.
They're still over by who was it? Somebody had a bar over by where because Wade from Chandler
Mhm.
hadn't been at NAMM in a long time, and he was showing his new console and some new stuff. It was great seeing him because him and I are close friends, but we haven't seen each other in a long. Once during COVID, like from COVID on, people kind of
Yeah.
lose track of people a little bit. It was great seeing him, but there was somebody in the row behind him that had an actual bar where they were
Mhm.
serving. I was like, where are these people getting beer from? Yeah, it's like
Well, and when I
it
first started
was
doing
great.
NAMM, it was so much more like you couldn't even bring your own water in because they wanted you to buy the $8 water bottles or whatever,
Right, exactly.
And now I think they figured out, oh, we should be nicer to the exhibitors, so they want to come back. So, I had a bottle of whiskey in the booth as well. And I was gonna save it for the last day. Caesar Mejia always brings me a bottle for the show because he knows how much NAMM I love it and I hate it. There's a lot of hate, but
Yeah.
and usually I save the bottle of whiskey for the last day of the show, but because I had to fly back early because of the snowstorm, I cracked it open on Friday and we had a real good time.
Oh, nice. my,
Well,
my first time going to NAMM was weird because I went because a friend of mine, um, he owned a music store.
mhm,
He was a great guitar player, a sick guitar player, but he also was in retail, and he kind of got into like online retail before it was even online. When it used to be, it was like the music store he worked for was one of the first that had like a like you ordered out of the catalog,
mhm,
like get their catalog, and then you'd order your gear through that, which seemed weird but it worked. And then
Mhm.
when the internet came out, he started his own company, but he would curate all his guitars and amps and stuff. So whenever you bought something from him, you knew it was good. Like it
Mhm.
was already, he wasn't selling crap. But in 90, maybe it was 99 or something, he was like, "Oh, um, do you want to go to this show?" And I was like, "Sure." And I was like, "What the hell is this?" Like it was, it was crazy how big it was. And then I went to Music Mesa. Have you been
Oh
to
my
that?
gosh. Yeah, R.I.P. Music Method. It's like a shadow of its former. That was like, it was like 5
That used to
NAMMs.
be insane.
Yeah, and of
Like,
course, like, speaking of drinking, everybody had a tap in
right, it
in
was
the booth.
Germany.
By 11, everybody was sloshed.
I know. That was the most like insane. I had to do an EAW thing at that, and it was like I couldn't believe how big it was. That the next year I went to NAMM, it felt tiny,
Yeah,
and that was
yeah,
still full size NAMM. It's
yeah.
like
But Music Mesa, the people who organized it kind of ran it into the ground,
yeah,
unfortunately. And I hope NAMM's not going the same way, but my money's on it may be going the same way. So, we'll see. It's like my
yeah,
only excuse to like get out and see all the people I like seeing, like you and Steve and like a bunch of our endorsers and like other gear manufacturers. It's a big group hang. We always, I remember the manufacturers. I was hanging with a couple guys and they were joking like, okay, we set up our booths, but what if we didn't let anybody in and then all the gear companies just hung out and then brought their friends and then we hung out for 4 days and left? I would pay for
right,
that. NAMM is
right.
way worse than
Yeah.
that.
Well, it used to be the Wednesday.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it kind of still is. It kind of still is.
Yeah, I remember like Wednesdays were, the gear manufacturers and then people like Eddie Van Halen. Because when I was working on Van Halen,
Mhm.
I was like, we were working then on the record, and I was kind of like, "Are you going to go down to NAMM?" He's like, "Oh, I went yesterday." Like, I think I was talking to him on Thursday, and he went Wednesday, and he got to walk the whole floor and meet everybody without the hoopla of the public,
Yeah. Yeah,
And I'm like,
exactly.
"Fuck! Now I have to go on Wednesdays." It's like go hang with my friends on Wednesday, get an exhibitor pass.
That's exactly it, man. If you can get that red badge, it makes life much easier at NAMM.
But it's fun, now because my brother works for Yamaha doing stuff, so he goes every year to meet his bosses and stuff like that, and it's fun like having someone, like him and I going together and
Mhm.
checking it out, you know.
Yeah.
Whereas before I'd always just go kind of by myself because like it was always to drag a group of friends down from LA. It was always okay. I'm done. Let's go. It's like someone always wanted to leave early and
Mhm.
easier to maneuver on your own sometimes. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
I
when
haven't
your
been in
brother
a
comes,
attendee in too many moons for sure. Like I forget what the attendee experience is like sometimes. Hey, my doorbell's here.
oh,
Did you hear her there? Or
yeah,
yeah, the
yeah,
mic caught it. Okay. I've got it on like the isolation mode to try and avoid that. But yeah, she's still talking. But
yeah,
yeah.
that's
Um,
awesome.
well, go enjoy lunch with Adam. Tell him I said hi. It's
Oh
funny.
well,
I actually got to go drop her off at a temp foster because my folks are coming into town. My dad's like pretty allergic to dogs. So
uh,
the super sheddy, dandruffy German Shepherd that was like underweight when we got her. Yeah, she needs to be somewhere
that's
else.
that's good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
or my dad's
can he
not going to have a good time for a week.
can he deal with like the doodles or the non-hyper?
I mean, he loves dogs. He just has always like when we were kids, we had dogs all our lives, and one of them was a German Shepherd mix. And when we got older, we found out like, oh yeah, he was like always on allergy meds and always miserable. He loved
Right.
dogs. He loved us enough to make sure we had a dog. We've got a resident who he's not really. It's so funny, like because we foster dogs, and my wife and I are both, depending on the dog, allergic to the dog. So some of them I'm allergic to her, and she's not, or vice versa. And
Oh
it's so
wow.
funny, like and it doesn't seem to be dependent on breed. It's just like whatever particular antigens that your body is seeing that it doesn't like. So
Right.
yeah, but our resident dog, we're not allergic to, and my dad isn't either. So I'm like, oh, thank goodness. So she's sticking around. So yeah, I mean, if it was between my dad and my dog, I'd be like, Dad, you're not coming to visit. Sorry.
Here's a hazmat suit.
Yeah, exactly. Go stay at a hotel. We'll meet at restaurants and stuff. And other than that, yeah. Well,
you have to shower before you go.
Yeah. Thanks again for doing this, man. I really appreciate it. I'm glad we finally managed to get together. If you're ever out in the Philly area, let me know and we'll hang and you can try and convince me to eat red meat for the first time. I come out there a
lot because I go to Lidditz. So.
Oh, that's right. Because Claire's in Lidditz. I always forget.
Yeah. You have to make a trip out there just to check out Rock Lidditz and that whole.
I have been invited a couple times and I'm always like, oh, it's like an hour something drive for me. It's probably an hour and a half for me, but I'm like, I'm 20 mics behind right now. I was 50 mics behind when I got back from NAMM. So,
oh shit.
And I've got like a CMV 63 and an M49 and a couple 414s in for repair. So like I'm way back on all my stuff. So one of these days I'm going to have free time and I'm going to remember what it's like. But
if you don't want to drive, you can always take the train from Union Station to Lancaster.
Yeah, that's true.
That's like $20 Uber up to there. So
yeah, that's true. Yeah, I might have to do that. Yeah, I've been to Lidditz a couple times for other stuff, and it's great. I just, that was before Claire started paying. What?
Got Dutch Wonderland out there.
Oh yeah. Hershey's out there. My wife likes to scream the tits whenever we get there. So
the tits. you've seen that thing from the news thing.
Yes,
right?
the news. The tits, and the guys just start busting up. It's Lidditz.
Oh, it's like. Well, I was actually what's funny is I was at the smokehouse last night getting dinner, and I was waiting because they were backed up on reservations. And then I hear this guy walking with a bunch of people. He's like, "You'll have to come out to Lidditz and come visit me at Rock Lidditz." And all I wanted to go, "It's Lidditz." I held back. It was not that kind of restaurant, but it would have been. They probably would have laughed. I didn't know who it was.
When my in-laws were out here, my mother-in-law is like, "Hey, I want to go to this town," and it's like a big like Amish quilting town, and she's a quilter. So and I'm like, "Well, what's it called?" She's like, "Well, it has a really embarrassing name." I'm like, "Do you want to go to Intercourse?" She's like, "Yeah, I want to go to Intercourse, Pennsylvania." So then the whole day, I was like, "I'm doing Intercourse with my in-laws," and made them super uncomfortable. It was great. Yeah,
I mean, maybe it was Lidditz. You had an Intercourse. It's like maybe Amish had a sense of humor.
Intercourse, Blue Ball. There's a couple of them out there that are.
It's like,
They definitely they know what they're doing. Intercourse used to be called like Chandlersburg or something like boring, but then they renamed it Intercourse because tourism, and it totally worked.
Right?
Sex sells.
No, the Amish are smart people. I like the Amish. They're like they know their shit, and they're a lot funnier than you think.
And speaking of beauty through simplicity,
Yeah.
In the year 2026, I'm like, maybe I should be Amish.
Should hire some Amish. You'd probably be 10 mics ahead.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. The craftsmanship, like Amish made furniture, like you go on Craigslist or whatever. And if it's like Amish made, it's, it still like retains value. So,
and it lasts forever.
Yeah.
They're pretty hard workers out there.
They put up a barn a day. It's amazing. Then they still have time for a party afterwards.
Well, that's why Rock Lidditz gets built. So things get built so fast there. It's like the Amish construction people are just ball busters.
Done. Yeah. Yep.
We don't have time to waste. Like their thing is like, let's get it up so we can use it.
Yep. Yeah, I like the ethic there. And I like the ethic of like, what if we just didn't have to worry about social media? That sounds really nice to me.
Right. I remember the day when you didn't have it.
Yeah. Oh God. Those halcyon days of no Facebook, just changing fonts in MySpace or whatever, Well,
I had my flight back from Brisbane, had no internet. And one guy was bitching about it the whole time. And I'm like, this is awesome. I don't look at anything.
Yeah.
I could just relax.
Yep.
It was kind of mind blowing in a way. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we've forgotten how to like be bored, like collectively.
Yeah. Well, I have a friend. She went on she's a playback person, but also an audio engineer. And she went on like one of those 10-day retreats where they take everything, you have no iPad, no connection. And she said the first 3 days were like drug withdrawal almost. It's just like, and then all of a sudden there was like this, like relaxed thing, like your brain unwound itself,
Yeah.
And then when she came back, she was like clearer and thinking, and you forget how much that stuff messes with you.
Oh yeah, it's like it's made to steal your attention because that's how they sell you more ads. I'm doing this book called How to Break Up with Your Phone, which came out like years ago, and my wife got it for me, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm definitely gonna do that. And I've noticed the difference. Like my attention span's better, and my thoughts are clearer, and I'm less like anxious and you have to at first though, like you said, it's like withdrawals. You're reaching for your phone that's not there, and you're like, what's
right?
What am I doing? It's just this automatic habit. So. Yeah. All right, man. Well, you got to meet Adam in 9 minutes. So I'm really sorry.
Yeah.
I said we'd stop and then we talked for another 15 minutes as I am.
I know.
Yeah. Thanks again, dude.
Brian Paul texted me too. It's like they all knew I was talking to you, I guess.
You should just take a screenshot of this and I'll just do this.
Yeah. Hold on. Let me do that real quick.
Yeah. Perfect. That won't come back to haunt me at all.
Speaking of the internet.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, man. Take it easy.
All right. I'll see you soon.